Today we're going to talk about les pronoms I and en. Now, you've probably already come across I. It can mean a few things. It's an adverbial pronoun and it has a variety of meanings. It can mean there, about, of, on, in, or to it. It usually replaces an inanimate object, idea, or thing. So, whereas we've just seen lui and leur used to replace people, I is what we use with things. You've seen it probably before with something like je vais au cinéma, j'y vais, and it means I'm going there. I'm going there, je vais au cinéma. We're going to replace the au cinéma with I because it's a thing. Now we know it is there, but actually, if we look a little bit deeper in, we can see that this is to the cinema. Je suis allée au bureau et j'y ai mis mes clés. I put my keys on it or there. Okay, so that's what that I is replacing. So it has a little bit more meaning than what we might have thought of originally, what we just sort of meant there. It often replaces a plus an infinitive. For example, elle répond à l'annonce. Elle y répond. So here again we have this a with our thing, and we're going to replace it with I. Remember when we were talking about if we were saying to him or to her, we'd replace it with lui. She responds to him, she answers him, elle lui répond. But if we're responding to a thing, here's our a, we're not going to use lui anymore, we're going to say I, elle y répond. Je penserai à ça, j'y penserai, I'll think about it. Because penser à means to think about something, to be having in your mind a thought about something. It's time to do a little bit of practice. I know you're doing this at home. If you want to say je voudrais aller à Paris, Paris is a thing. So we're going to replace à Paris with I. And we need to put it before the verb. Now remember, when we have more than one verb, in a situation like this, we put it before the second verb, before the infinitive. Je voudrais y aller. Je ne pense jamais à mes problèmes. Again, à mes problèmes, we have à with a thing. We're going to replace it with I. We're going to put it before the verb. Je n'y pense jamais. Remember, with our negatives, the negatives sandwich the verb, and the pronouns are allowed to come before the verb in that special order. For more information about that order, watch my screencasts, Object Pronouns Position Part 1 and Part 2. Il a mis le feu à sa vieille bagnole. So this is à plus a thing. Il y a mis le feu. So remember, when we're talking about passé composé, the verb is the conjugated auxiliary, avoir or être. Okay, so we've got examples of different situations here. We know that pronouns come before the verb. When we have two verbs like this, it comes before the infinitive. If it's a negative, it's allowed to hang out in that special order before the verb, and the negatives sandwich the whole thing. And if it's the passé composé, the verb is the conjugated avoir or être. Je vais aider à préparer le déjeuner. So if you've got a and a thing, preparing lunch, we're going to replace it with I, and it needs to come before the infinitive. Je vais y aider. Now, let's look at en. En is very useful and often used. It also is an adverbial pronoun, and basically it replaces de plus a noun, a cardinal number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, or an imprecise number, plusieurs, beaucoup, assez. De plus an infinitive. For example, il veut de la glace. So here we've got the de, some. We replace it with en. It's a pronoun, so it comes before the verb. Il en veut. Elle boit du café. Some. Elle en boit. We replace it with en. It comes before the verb. Tu as acheté un livre. This time we have a cardinal number. A book, not the book, but a book. So it's a bit different. If we were going to say tu as acheté le livre, we would say tu l'as acheté. You bought it. But this time because it's un, a cardinal number, we need to replace it with en, and we put the en before the verb, and with passé composé, the verb is the conjugated auxiliary avoir être. But this time we also need to add the actual number. So that's why we have to add the un. Tu en as acheté un. We can't leave that behind. So in English, we might say, you bought one. In French, you can't just say one. You have to say, you bought one of them. Tu en as acheté un. And we've got to include that number. Je vois plusieurs filles. I see several girls. Again, we need to replace that plusieurs. It's a bit like a number. J'en vois plusieurs. I see several of them. Just as with I, we often used it was art plus an infinitive. In the same way, after a verb that takes de, we will use en. Elle s'approche de la vache. Here we have de la vache. So it's got the de, we need to replace it with en. Elle s'en approche. Je me souviens du film. I remember the film. Du, we need to replace that with en. Je m'en souviens. So this means that we need to remember what are those verbs. I know there are many of them, but what are some of the commonly occurring verbs that take de? Therefore, we need to remember those ones are going to use en. Se moquer de. Il s'est moqué de son ami. We're going to replace de son ami with en. Il s'en est moqué. Here's some practice. Je ne mange pas de praline. We're going to replace this with en. We're going to put it before the verb. Je n'en mange pas. Remember that ne and pas sandwich the verb, and all of those pronouns come in a special order before the verb, in between the ne and the pas. Tu as beaucoup d'amis. We're going to replace d'amis with en. Tu en as beaucoup. Do you have many of them? J'ai deux chats. Again, we have a cardinal number here, 2 cats. We need to replace this with en, and we need to keep that number. J'en ai deux. Je ne me souviens pas de cet homme. So that underline should just be there. We're going to replace that with en. Je ne m'en souviens pas. De cet homme, we're going to replace with en. Ne and the pas, sandwich the verb. Notes. In the passé composé and other compound tenses, I and en are placed before the auxiliary verb. You know that. Pronouns come before the verb. With passé composé or compound tenses, the verb is the conjugated verb, the avoir or the être, like direct and indirect object pronouns. Also, the past participle does not agree in gender and number with I and en, like indirect object pronouns. So they only agree with direct object pronouns. For example, il a parlé de sa nouvelle idée. He talked about his new idea. Il en a parlé. No agreement. Les pronoms I